The federal government has attributed a delay in effective beating of Boko Haram, which it said it has tactically defeated, to global powers that are blocking Nigeria's move to acquire weapons to fight terrorism and win the insurgency war. According to the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who spoke to reporters in Makurdi, the Benue State capital, the action of the world power was frustrating Nigeria's resolve to end the insurgency war. The minister's comments have come as against the backdrop of last Saturday's killing of no fewer than 43 rice farmers by Boko Haram in Zabamari, Borno State. Here we go again.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. We've been here before, haven't we?
Yes.
With the Nigerian government accusing the United States of not helping out in this fight against insurgency. And they trying to counter and sort of defend themselves by claiming that they offer training and intelligence, but not the important point of weapons, supplying us with weapons. And at the time, they were claiming, well, the reports were that the United States said that they were reacting to human rights abuses carried out by soldiers in the Northeast. But is that enough of a justification to just leave us twisting in the wind there and not support us at all? Well, you know this better than anybody else.
Well, I don't know,
you
but
do.
I'll provide some of the details. Now, the situation is that as far back as 2014, the Nigerian government discovered that the Americans under President Obama, they were not very enthusiastic about assisting Nigeria with weapons, although they supported Nigeria at the level of providing training and certain logistics. And so Nigeria was under very serious pressure, in fact, even before 2014. And that led to a situation whereby Nigeria now started engaging other countries of the world. First, Israel. And Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was very willing to support Nigeria. I recall being at that meeting, you know, in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's, conference room. And but the Americans later blocked that attempt. Nigeria also later approached Russia, and then also that attempt was also frustrated by the United States. And later, you'll recall that at some point, Nigeria tried to get, some weaponry from South Africa, and that also ran into a hitch, creating a public relations crisis for the administration. Eventually, by the time the government succeeded, one way or the other, it was almost election time, and there was a ramping up of efforts in the fight against terrorism. But that was not really appreciated because most observers thought that, this was because of election. But this was the difficulty that the Nigerian government was facing at that time. And the excuse of the United States was that the Nigerian soldiers were guilty, or they held them guilty, accountable for human rights abuses in the northeastern part of the country. And in the U.S., there is something called the Lee Law, under which the United States does not sell weapons to countries that are, blacklisted as being guilty of human rights abuses. And every effort by the Nigerian government to say that, that accusation was misplaced, did not yield any positive results. So although the United States provided training in terms of logistics and all of that, in some cases maybe some equipment, but they did not supply Nigeria with the kind of sophisticated weaponry that could be used to prosecute the war. And it is instructive that when President Buhari assumed office, he also faced the same challenge, the same concern. Shortly after his election in 2015, you'll recall that one of his first major visits was to the United States. He met with President Barack Obama in July 2015. And when President Buhari addressed the Institute of Peace, the U.S. Institute of Peace in Washington, D.C., this was the main message that he put across, that, the United States was not helping Nigeria enough because the United States was not supporting Nigeria with the kind of weapons that the military in Nigeria would need. I mean, the kind of weapons that could make a difference, not, the kind of weapons that we just use to do, small efforts. So what has happened is that between that 2015 and now, what the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, has now pointed out is the fact that this has remained the case. And it is most unfortunate that that is the case, because what we have been receiving from the United States, which is the world's primary power, is what you could refer to as mixed messaging with regard to the fight against global terrorism. Now, the U.S. has a Special Operations Command in Africa, and on a regular basis, that command tries to engage countries in Africa, whether it's Mali or Burkina Faso or Mozambique, which has issues of terrorism in its northern area, or Somalia. But the mixed messaging has been, on one hand, the U.S. expresses its commitment, but particularly under President Trump. You will recall that shortly after withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, from Syria, West Africa was the next region where, the United States withdrew troops from, particularly from the Sahel region. So this mixed messaging has remained, but I think that the thing to say to the Nigerian government is that we have to continue to engage the United States, particularly now that a new administration is coming in and President Biden seems to have a more positive attitude towards Africa, as we all imagine and as we all expect.
Fingers crossed. Let's see how this will pan out. All right, it's always a pleasure to have you back on the Resigned channel every morning, and it's time for our dependable Rotus Oderi to give us Africa Business Update. Over to you, Rotus.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Tundu. We begin with some big news from the central bank. With a circular that was released yesterday that was to authorize dealers and to the general public. They've basically liberalized access to foreign exchange from the diaspora through IMTOs, that's international money transfer operators. So essentially what the circular is saying is that if you are receiving foreign exchange from the diaspora, you can now have access to that foreign exchange either in cash or going into your domiciliary account. And you have basically unfettered access, unrestricted access to the foreign exchange. So what's the impact? Essentially, this is going to deepen the foreign exchange market. It should also strengthen the Naira because, I mean, if you've got, if you're allowing recipients of diaspora FX coming in, if you're basically liberalizing the access to the foreign exchange, that means more should come in. And if more comes in, that increases the supply, and that should strengthen the local currency. Also, it should encourage more, according to what the CBN said in the circular, it should encourage more folks in the diaspora who want to invest in various things in Nigeria to be encouraged more to send their funds through those channels. And also enhances liquidity because we've been talking a lot about liquidity with respect to the amount of FX that's available. Now, there was a second circular that was sent out, and that circular, the central bank basically reiterated domiciliary account rules where they talked about, listen, if you are using, domiciliary accounts for, export proceeds. So if you export anything, the proceeds from what you receive are to be used for proper regulated business activities. Anything that's left over should be sold into the INE window, the importers and investors and exporters window. So two circulars that are out there. We've liberalized access to Forex, but essentially you should remember the rules for operation of domiciliary accounts. Also, if you're receiving an electronic transfer into your domiciliary account, you've got access to it. That's fine. Use as you please. It's, I believe, about a $10,000 limit. However, if you have cash going into your domiciliary account, there are still rules that apply to how you use that cash. And the central bank also stressed in their second circular, where they were reiterating those rules, that listen, we now have enhanced capabilities of monitoring how these funds are used. I think they made a reference to the bank verification number as well. So by and large, this is a welcome development with respect to having access to those funds, with respect to adding liquidity to the market, with respect to deepening it. And we should hopefully see, we'll monitor things and see how the Naira appreciates with respect to what the central bank has ordered here through the second. You should check out our sister publication this day. It's on the front page. Also, if we move now to the land borders, Sabo Nanono, the Agric minister, said recently that the land borders are going to remain closed. And, he said this against the backdrop of the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, and also Vice President Osibanjo, both in recent interactions with the media, both saying that the borders would be reopened soon. So we've got some mixed messaging here from the federal government with respect to when these land borders will open, because I mean, you've seen the impact on inflation since August of 2019, where it's been steadily rising. And we've said this again and again and again. Inflation is now at 14.23%. Food inflation is at 17.3, 17.4. What exactly is going to happen with the borders? Are they going to be reopened soon? Are they not? Who's advising the president on what's going to happen with respect to the borders? Because this isn't just affecting us here in terms of food prices. This is also with respect to our neighbors on the other side. They having access to this market. So it's a bit confusing, and we're hoping that we get some clarity from the federal government with respect to exactly what is going to happen with the land borders. And then finally, December is here. It's the first day of the final month of a very tumultuous, volatile, tragic 2020. What's shopping going to be like? It's expected that perhaps shopping will be depressed this year in terms of volumes of food items and other things that are sold. However, with prices increasing, we've got, of course, again, reflecting on inflation, with reflecting on the fact that prices are higher, perhaps on a net basis compared to 2019, maybe, those that are sellers will still come out ahead, but it's generally expected that perhaps, shopping will be depressed this year compared to 2019. And we know the reasons why: the pandemic, the recession, job losses, people furloughed, let go, salary reductions, and so on and so forth. There will probably be no Dirty December this year. The concerts are going to be restricted, gatherings of number of people. There's still curfews in place, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But by and large, we're probably going to see lower shopping volumes compared to last year. And that's our update.
I mean, that's the stark reality of the kind of world we live in today, Rotus Week. The pandemic still rearing its ugly head. And if you had seen me this morning, I was literally dancing. At least we can put this here behind us, because it's been a really tumultuous year for business. It's been a tumultuous year, most importantly, for our currency. And also, at this point, I would just like to beg the speculators to please calm down. Stop overheating the market. I mean, the currency and the forex market. Good move by the CBN, I should say. But most importantly, we should calm down. The border closure. I mean, when I heard what the Agri Minister said, I was quite iffy about the reaction to give, but it's quite very sad that we have seen from all the indicators. Everybody have argued for this. At first, when the border was closed, the federal government kept on arguing for the border closure. They went to media and they kept on putting these promotional videos out on how the border closure has spurred businesses of local, people, local businesses and local rice farmers. They were on television. We all saw that. But all of a sudden, voila, Rotus, I don't see those videos any longer.
I know.
Because the inflation rates keep budgeting up, especially food inflation, which is dragging core inflation with it. So I don't see those videos any longer. It shows that the argument is no longer solid. We need to open these borders. We can't allow food inflation to keep rising, owing to the fact that we have massive insecurity. Most of the monies the CBN has pumped into the Anchor's Borrower scheme in the north for rice farms. You can see what's happening on those rice farms. Boko Haram is collecting money from those farmers, holding them ransom. They can't farm, they can't harvest. Those guys were going to harvest when they were killed. God knows what will happen to that rice that still remain, the paddy that remained on that field after the 43 guys were killed, when the farmers were killed, when they got on that field. So this is the time to be able to cushion the effect of this. I don't know what the price of the bag of rice is in the market, but I was overhearing somebody say 20 or 50,000 naira.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's above the minimum wage, which is at 30,000, and so it continues to rise. Really quickly, though, the federal government's argument, of course, is smuggling. So smuggling affects the margins at which food producers here in Nigeria can sell their goods. So I mean, that's been the main smuggling of arms and so on. So that's been the main argument that they continue to put forward. But again, they said it was going to be reopened soon, and now we're just getting mixed messages on that.
Well, Rotus, very quickly, I think the move on the diaspora remittances by the central bank, a lot of people will find that encouraging. But isn't it something that government needed to do inevitably anyway, considering the issues we have with liquidity, particularly in the forex market? And diaspora remittances being a major source of forex inflow into Nigeria. Although the analysis by the World Bank and others is that with COVID and the disruptions, the global disruptions, there's going to be a sharp drop in the amount of remittances that we have from Nigerians in diaspora. But the other leg of it, the rules that you talked about with regard to direct lodgements. Yes, the concern of the CBN is that they put structures in place to check money laundering. But is it not about time that they took a second look at those rules? Because there have been complaints, from persons who have domiciliary accounts in terms of how they are able to operate their domiciliary accounts when they make direct lodgements. What do you think?
Well, Doctor, the CBN FX manual was updated, 2006, was updated in 2018. So if you ask the central bank, they'll say that, look, we've reviewed these rules and we're doing the best we can to manage a finite resource. So if only we could print dollars ourselves, we can't. So they have to manage the supply as best they can to meet the most eligible transactions that are out there. So if you had to put this to them, they'll say, look, we've already reviewed this thing and we're doing the best we can. And with this latest move, here we are liberalizing this further. So, they would expect that the market will smile on this and say, okay, well, this should work as far as review of the rules are concerned.
Well, we don't have time. I just wanted to say it's quite unfortunate for the Minister of Agriculture to be talking about locking up the border and throwing away the key. I mean, that's awful imagery. A border closure obviously is going to be temporary. And I do hope that the Minister of Finance proves to be right and not the Minister of Agriculture.
Indeed. And importantly, aren't the smugglers still smuggling?
Of course they are.
All right, thank you so much. Moving on to Business Update with Michael Wilson, joining us from London. Great to have you, Michael.
Good morning. I'm going to take you to Asia as usual first, and the activity in China's factory sector accelerated the fastest pace in a decade last month in November. And so clearly the world's second largest economy, and this is a private survey, not a government one, recovers to pre-pandemic levels. The PMI, the Caixin Market Manufacturing PMI, rose to 54.9. Anything over 50 is very good. It wasn't expected to get to that kind of level. So therefore, Asian stocks and US futures have actually risen this morning. The broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan up about 0.25%. Doesn't sound a lot, but actually these days it is. But the month is the figure, 9% on the month. And Japan's Nikkei up, China's blue chip up 0.75%. But that's the markets. In reality, trade wars continue. China has introduced tough new laws about restricting the export of controlled items. They are military technologies and other products which China feels might damage its national security. They are widely believed to be in response to what the United States has done to companies like TikTok, Huawei and Tencent that we've covered in detail in the past. Meanwhile, Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison has demanded an apology from the Chinese government. A spokeswoman at the Chinese Foreign Ministry earlier tweeted the fake image of an Australian soldier holding a knife to the throat of a child in Afghanistan. Morrison had actually asked his Twitter, has not only asked for an apology, but has asked Twitter to take it down. I looked this morning, it's still there. And that tweet from the Chinese is a reference to an investigation by the Inspector General of the Australian Defence Force conduct in Afghanistan. So that's continuing to put pressure between those two countries. Again, something we've talked about over the past few days. Not just wine, but also coal. Two big exports from Australia to Japan, to China rather, China being Australia's biggest export market. So therefore, futures doing actually quite well today. Stock markets, though, in Europe actually finished the month slightly lower. The FTSE had its best month since 1989. The Dow Jones, its biggest monthly gain since 1987. All that, as you know, has been fueled by the positive news we've had. Take it or leave it, but the markets have taken positive. COVID-19 vaccine from Pfizer, BioNTech, AstraZeneca, and Oxford University. But So from a health point of view, it's extremely encouraging. The reason it didn't really boost stocks towards, well, the last day of the month is that people actually were just taking their profits off the table. That appears to be knowledge, but things will start to change around as we get into December, which of course is today. Speaking of markets that have been on a good run recently, Bitcoin in US dollars, the US side of Bitcoin hit a new record high yesterday. I have my doubts about it. I've raised them. Rotus does too. But it basically critically received endorsements from payment companies like PayPal, for example, and that's added credibility to its assets. So overall, the Dow up 11.8% in November. That's the best 1 month performance for a very long time. But Chairman of the Fed, Jay Powell, talking to the Senate Banking Committee, said that things could still be very challenging, and he once again reiterated the fact that every item, every weapon in the box is available, every tool in the box is available from the Fed to try to help the economy. One company doing very much better than expected. We saw a slight move away from Zoom, didn't we? But listen to this: annual sales be higher than expected. They said revenue would be more than $2.5 billion, and the prediction it comes as the company is actually saying what they're now doing is they're converting more and more businesses to become paying customers. So Zoom will no longer be free for businesses in this new, as they put it, world of work from anywhere. UK, EU, Brexit discussions continue, mounting frustrations from EU member states about what's actually going to happen. So that's the other side of things. A lot of states are worried about what their relationship with the UK will be if there's no deal on Brexit. There looks to be some coordination. Meanwhile, big doubts about whether the crucial points are going to be agreed, particularly about the fishing industry. Not big as far as the UK is concerned, but big in terms of national identity. And well, OPEC really in disarray, just as you'd expect. OPEC, the core group, have pushed back discussions about extending existing cuts. OPEC Plus are getting together. They pushed that meeting till Thursday. It's all very complicated. I'm just trying to summarize it for you. So basically, oil prices today slid really amid reports of more stockpiling going on. And finally, we're going to get PMIs from the United Kingdom and also leading European countries over the morning. And that will give a good idea really of people's thoughts about what's coming up in next month, or rather this month, and also 2021. That's the global view.
Michael, I don't know how much time we have, but two quick things. One, on Bitcoin. Bitcoin seems, in spite of its volatility, seems to be establishing itself as a store of value, as a strong store of value. Do you think it can rival gold, it can beat gold, or what we're witnessing is just, a coincidence and not an actual rotation? And then on Australia, between Australia and China, what actually is China's game plan? Because Scott Morrison says Australia is being sanctioned and frustrated for just being Australia. But there must be some kind of bigger plan. Is China trying to use Australia to send a strong message to the West and other countries that may align with the United States to threaten its current dominant position? How do we situate it within the larger geopolitics?
Listening to the Australian Prime Minister yesterday, the view is very much the other way around, that they feel as though China, along with a number of other countries, are actually feeling is acting completely out of character with a leading world nation. And this kind of tweet was something which just a government ought not to be doing. The rights and wrongs of what actually happened there have been actually investigated. And this was a falsified tweet, and it just seems such a clumsy thing for them to do. And I think also Africa probably looks at some of the Chinese investments, and still the debate will continue of whether they are investments or whether this is part of the Belt and Road strategy that China has. Remember, China thinks in eras rather than just our normal cycle of politics that we have in our countries. So I feel as though Australia and China, it's another ratcheting up of this trade war. China is clearly flexing its muscles as far as I can see.
All right, very exciting one and exciting insight there. I'd love to even press that even further by referring to an Economist magazine report recently. I talked about the fact that it was because Australia kept on speaking about the human rights issues and some other issues in China. That's why China is blocking Australian coal from coming in and trying to stifle them in business. And it was because Jack Ma spoke up against how the financial system is being run inside of China. That's why they deliberately put down this business and financial, and it didn't make that public offer go through. So really, it's just about understanding the perspective of China and all of this. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you, Michael, for that. For update on COVID-19 pandemic, Aaron Akirjala is here with us. Aaron, great to have you.
Yes, good morning to you, Rufai. Doctor, good morning. And
good morning.
Tundu.
Morning,
it's a pleasure.
Aaron.
Good morning. And let's get started. And I must start it off from the WHO. The WHO chief, Tedros Ghebreyesus, has actually welcomed the first weekly decline in COVID-19 cases since September. Like we can actually see on the screen there, the numbers are actually dropping, and this is the first decline we've seen in a very long time. And I must say that the efforts in Europe is actually playing a big role in ensuring that this is happening. But the deaths are still on the rise. You can actually see that it has actually risen by 14% in the last 24 hours. 8,818 at the moment is the number that is actually coming in. All right, let's actually move on quickly. As Governor Gavin Newsom has said that California will receive its first doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine in the middle of December. The vaccine is still awaiting the FDA approval, which is expected to happen sometime in December. And a limited number of California's 2.4 million healthcare workers will receive the first jab. They are expecting about 327,000 doses to actually come in. So let's see what actually happens. And we're still keeping tabs on that particular one. We'll be talking about this particular approval all through right now. But in the meantime, a news just came in this morning that Trump's pandemic advisor, Scott Atlas, has resigned. This man spent just 130 days at the White House, and he had been pushing for the whole herd immunity thing, which did not fly, but he's actually resigned right now and said he's done. This news just came in this morning. But in the meantime, vaccine makers, Novavax and Moderna right now are hoping that they get the FDA approval. To be very precise, Moderna are hoping that they become the second U.S. company to actually get, because they've released their full results from the vaccine candidate they've actually put out there. And when we actually look at it, putting it side by side, that they are the results from this particular candidate actually shows, initially they were saying 94.5 as against Pfizer and BioNTech's 95, but right now the results actually coming in actually states that it's effective to the tune of 94.1, and they will be seeking emergency authorization from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and they will be meeting, talking about the FDA in the U.S. will be meeting on the 10th to review this application. They've already applied for conditional approval to the EU, and the EU will be meeting on this particular Moderna vaccine next week, Monday. So they are hoping that something good will come out. As a matter of fact, Health Secretary in the US, Alex Azar, has even gone ahead to say that before Christmas, they are sure that jabs of vaccines, either it's from Pfizer, BioNTech, or Moderna, will be out there, and people will begin to receive these jobs. Certainly, it will be frontline workers who will get them first before any other people. Now, moving away from that quickly, this story has been troubling. We've been talking about COVID-19 for quite a while, and we're not still sure of the origins. And a whistleblower, as a matter of fact, has actually come out and spoken to the CNN and said that China have not been truthful in its entirety in the handling of COVID-19, and more importantly, that as it stands right now, they deliberately misled world powers, and the initial response from Wuhan and other affected areas was hit by organizational issues. China is still denying this, and we're hoping that what the WHO's findings will reveal will be closer to this, or we'll get some kind of closure onto how this virus came to be. As the WHO are insisting that they will get to the bottom of this virus, and they will do everything to find out the origin and do everything to know where this virus comes from, which is very important. We're down the line right now. And we're not still sure of how this origin actually, the origins of this virus. We know it's from an animal, but we're not sure. It's still guesswork at the moment. We were hoping that by now the WHO would have gone deeper into this, but that has not happened.
It doesn't look zoonotic to me. Aaron, I'm going to challenge the fact that it's even from an animal and that Wuhan seafood market theory.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I mean, it doesn't look zoonotic to me in any way, shape, or form. The way it metamorphoses so quickly looks quite very biological to me. I mean, I have no facts on this, but more research will reveal things in the future. And I'm also going to quote Bob Woodward's book,
all right,
where he was talking about the Deputy National Security Advisor, Pottinger, telling Trump about something going out of hand in China, about a certain virus in February. You know, and he said even the Chinese can't control it. And Pottinger never said in Bob Woodward's book that it was anything zoonotic. The way it metamorphoses, the symptoms and the way it moves.
No, the whistleblower's theory actually points towards an animal origin, one, and two, that we're talking as far back as the 1st of December. Today,
yes,
1 year ago, was when these things actually started ravaging. And the handlings of this from China and the authorities in that Hubei province probably might have contributed in having it escalate, and the Chinese, one way or the other.
No, but I'm sorry, but the what is it called is absolutely correct. The whistleblower. You know what I'm going to prove for you? You remember the first dentist that spoke out about this? You remember he was arrested?
Yes, he was.
He finally died from COVID.
And when you have a sudden spike in patients with flu-like symptoms, why on earth did they cover it up? Why did they even start to take 23 days to diagnose people?
True.
This report is highly disturbing.
Well, I think, one, let us say that the WHO inquiry is important. What the Director of Emergencies, Michael Ryan of the WHO, pointed out is that, look, the knowledge from this will help to prevent future outbreaks.
Yeah.
At least there will be some kind of knowledge in terms of how COVID-19 itself started. The same way we are mining knowledge from the handling of SARS, MERS, and also from Ebola. So an advanced team has already been dispatched to Beijing, and we expect that in due course WHO will send another team. But what is important is for the Chinese authorities to cooperate with the researchers sent in by the WHO. The second point, the CNN report, the Wuhan files. Now, if you look at the report, there has been no response from the Health Commission, Center for Disease Control in Wuhan, the National Health Commission in China, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It will be interesting to have their own side of the story. Yes, we're told by CNN that this came from a whistleblower who was an insider, and it's a 117-page report. Now, that story is important because, one, there is this conspiracy theory that the Chinese were not transparent enough and they did not give enough information and that they were toying with the data that they were putting across. Allegations that are in that particular report by CNN. But this was something that originated in Wuhan. In fact, the Wuhan files by CNN is even saying that there had been an outbreak of influenza about a month earlier in the Hubei province.
Yes.
That in fact Wuhan was the third location, and that was one that was reported, and that, you know, there wasn't enough honesty about what exactly transpired. But this is something that went on to have global consequences. It has resulted in the death of hundreds of thousands of people. So the rest of the world will need to know what exactly happened. And that is why it is important for China, which has recovered faster than any other country and is making profit from its fast recovery from the economic effect of COVID-19. We need to provide that information and knowledge that will help the rest of the world. But we may not jump to conclusions yet because we've only had one side of the story. It's important to have both sides so that we don't begin to sound like those conspiracy theorists who even go for that to say China deliberately manufactured it
but these
for
are not
economic
theories.
advantages.
These are not theories. People disappeared.
Yeah.
Whistleblowers were sanctioned.
Yeah, that's
and
why
at times like this, I wish Donald Trump had won the election.
Yeah.
He would have handled this.
And to go one step further, that account I gave of Pottinger was from Bob Woodward's book based on investigative journalism and what was discussed in the topmost security echelon of American government when they called Trump's attention to it, that something has gone out of hand in China, that the Chinese can't control themselves. It was in Bob Woodward's book, and he specifically put that out there.
Bob Woodward is not a scientific authority.
I'm hoping
what is important is the investigation.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm hoping that
if a neutral body like WHO does it, maybe we'll be able to trust it.
Is WHO neutral?
Well, the WHO Director General insists that the inquiry should not be politicized, because the politicization of the COVID-19 experience and process is part of the dilemma that the world faces.
That's why we all don't trust them.
We don't trust them.
Let's
trust Trump then.
Let's see what becomes of that particular report.
Trump,
we are hoping
you know what
so.
Trump will do. You know.
Yeah, we're hoping so that the report actually, at some point, will give some glimmer of insight into the origins, and more importantly, like Doctor said, help us probably prevent other diseases and know how to tackle other diseases. But that particular report already, before work has even begun fully, they're already talking about the independence or maybe the compromisation of that particular report.
Aaron, I just want to, if China too will tell us in that report, how come it is only China that grew 4.9% while other countries are having minus 20? They should also include it in that report, what they did. How come it is only China that grew 4.9% in a year where other countries are having negative growth?
But by next year, China is looking at 9%.
Okay. All right, thank you so much, Aaron. Really appreciate it.